Aloha from Oahu, where you can see an authentic Hawaiian background. My name is Tom Cooper, and I lived in Winthrop North and Currier houses before graduating from Harvard in 1973. Since I taught ethics for 36 years, I remember posing hypothetical questions to students such as, if you had only one seat remaining on a life raft of the Titanic and two people rushed to you at the same time asking for it, and one was a woman with a baby in her arms, and the other was a man claiming to have the cure for cancer, whom would you choose if you were the lifeboat captain? Or, hypothetically still, what if one of the two passengers was England's only princess and the other passenger was an Oxford student? What makes these questions important in a democracy is not just the quest for an answer and the thinking it takes to get there, but rather that we ask the questions in the first place. In a monarchy, the royal princess would automatically be chosen for the lifeboat, and sadly, in some countries, a woman would never be chosen. What about voting? Should the legal age be 16, 18, 21? Should all incarcerated people be allowed to vote? What about convicted serial killers? Should birth in this country automatically qualify someone not only for citizenship, but voting privileges? I have a stand on these issues, but putting my opinion aside, I'm not pushing for an absolute correct answer because, once again, what stands out are the questions. In a democracy, we can endlessly question and debate the limits of the rights of individuals. Yet in some political systems, no one would vote. In others, certain groups would not be permitted to vote. And still, in other countries, the outcome of an election would be known before the charade of voting even began. But in the United States, we have a history of seeking to include more voters, people of all races, genders, and classes, not just those considered literate, powerful, or privileged. So we've pushed for greater inclusion. But what about exclusion? Do we need to be concerned when the trend turns in the other direction? What if there is a push to exclude, to deport, to demand unobtainable documentation, to decrease rather than increase citizens' rights? And then there's another type of exclusion, excluding some from paying taxes, or from disclosing their taxes, or from serving in the military. At what point are such exclusions undemocratic and unethical? And here's a paradox. Should democracies allow us to exclude departments and offices which include the word inclusion in their title? Why would we downsize the rights and protections of those whose rights need to be upsized? As we consider the history of this democracy, there's an overarching initiative to include more and more voices. First, historically, the colonist. Later, those who had been enslaved. Then, original Americans, we mistakenly called Indians. Still later, the suffragettes and the many they represented, over half the population, and others. If we now hear of many who are potentially or actually excluded from office, from voting, from their former rights, from the borders of this country, from having no voice in the future, is it not time to reawaken to our legacy of proclaiming these two words: for all? Liberty and justice for all. In a world with titanic problems, it's not a matter of solving ethical dilemmas about lifeboats, but rather about navigating the ship of state and democracy through a sea of increasingly visible icebergs, and doing so with inclusion of and liberty and justice for all. Thank you.